The Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need an experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes, offering web design and web development and e-commerce and mobile apps and digital marketing. All of this to drive your overall business's success because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. AmericanEagle.com, AmericanEagle.com. Welcome to the podcast. Last week, we didn't even get to reviews because I had so much I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to talk about some stuff that's available now for you. And I promise we'll be doing reviews. I mentioned on an earlier podcast a couple of weeks ago, I moved on from the Chicago Sun-Times, which was my home newspaper, for reviews for a very long time. I think within a week or two of this podcast airing, I will be able to tell you where you will be able to get new print reviews from me, but we'll continue to do them on the podcast as well. But we should have some news very soon. Entertainment news. I wanted to talk about this. This has been something that's been knocked around for weeks and months or years, really, but there's been a new kind of round of stories about this. And this is about theater owners trying to figure out how to attract more viewers. As you might know, theater movie attendance is down. There's still millions of people going and tens of millions of dollars being made, but it's been a struggle since COVID. The numbers have still not reached the pre-COVID numbers, partially because people got used to watching things at home even more than they already had, partially because of other things that we're going to talk about here. So this is from Variety, Showbiz Bible. From selling pot, that's right, from selling pot along with popcorn to offering cell phone-friendly screenings, cinema owners could soon overhaul the way their customers watch films. These changes, many of them once considered sacrilegious, may give the box office a much-needed boost. There are plenty of people out there to entice, given that the majority of Americans these days are not regular moviegoers. The U.S. population continues to grow, but there haven't been many innovations drawing newcomers to the multiplex, unless you're talking about like the Dune popcorn bucket. And what's the deal? That Minecraft movie, that's not my thing. I'm not a Minecraft, but I saw these stories about, these young guys, mostly young guys, not only throwing popcorn, but like setting off fireworks and chicken jockey and all this stuff, which, I'm all for, it's the Minecraft movie. It's making zillions of dollars, but people got to clean up your mess, man. Don't be throwing popcorn at the theater. Anyway, sidebar. This Variety report, I like this. They actually did a little reporter on the street. Take Kev Jones, who was smoking a joint outside the AMC Times Square on a March weeknight before a screening of Mickey 17. It's a good movie to smoke a joint before, let me tell you. It helps to loosen me up and puts me in a sci-fi frame of mind, he says, taking a big hit. But honestly, I smoke before every movie. It's so great. So they're talking about, in other words, instead of, if you want to smoke a joint where, a lot of places it's now legal, including where I am here in Chicago, why not sell it in the movie theater? Well, you still can't smoke inside theaters. It's still smoking, which is since like 2007. You can't smoke indoors in the United States of America, at least. But I guess you could sell gummies. And I don't know, there's other stuff, right? Chocolates and brownies and stuff like that. Jessica Garcia, a college student in Michigan, says she loves movies, but can't remember the last time she saw one in a theater. I just like streaming things. That's my Jessica Garcia invitation. I just like streaming things and sitting on the couch with my phone and snacks. If there's a boring part, I'll just jump on Instagram or TikTok quick until things get going again. And that just breaks my heart. But it doesn't surprise me, but the idea that people put so much time and effort into film and movies. Listen, if I'm watching sports, I'm going to go online, and I've mastered the art of in between pitches going to another game and all that. But the idea that that ship has sailed in terms of home viewing. There was a video a couple weeks ago of the WNBA draft, and when one of the players got drafted, all of her teammates were all sitting there with her. And the moment she got drafted, they all went crazy, and every single teammate, every single person in the video had their phones out and was going nuts and hugging their teammate while watching the event through their phones, while watching their friend get drafted 3 feet away from them. And I get it. That's what life is like now. But I'm thinking there's already video. There's a television camera. There's a professional camera recording all of that. And you're looking at everything, even something that's literally right in front of you, your friend, one of her greatest moments, a teammate, and you're making sure you get it for your Instagram. And then 12 of them are going to have the same basic angle of everybody jiggly camera. And I know I'm the Simpsons meme, going into the hedges, or Trump yelling at the kid with the lawnmower. I get it. Old man screaming at clouds. But I think it's more sad than anything else when we talk about that. There's a little bit of a sidebar. Now, the article goes on to talk about how they could have sing-alongs. You remember they had the Wicked thing where people were singing along, but it wasn't a designated. And I said at the time, if it's a designated sing-along screening for Wicked or Wicked Part 2 that comes out later this year, go for it. That's cool. Because then everybody there wants to do the karaoke thing and sing along. They've done that with the Rocky Horror Picture Show for 50 years. And, that I could see a theater doing that, with other movies. Everybody go there and sing along with the tragedy of Les Mis. Look down, but fine. Or Rent, is a great sing along. Hamilton, obviously. You could probably have a theater that just musical sing along. You can go all the way back to Singing in the Rain, right? Listen, that's fine because everybody there knows that is what they're going to do. As far as selling pot, yeah, like I said, well, I don't care. I mean, listen, a lot of people are smoking a joint before they go in to see some of these movies anyway. Especially if, some of these bonkers, trippy-ass films out there. So fine, especially, listen, it's legal now. I mean, it's amazing to me because when I was coming up back in the day, we wanted to play poker, and I was never a big pot smoker because it just made me cough and gave me a huge headache. But if people wanted to say, hey, man, I'm going to host a poker game, there was a laundromat, dry cleaners, let's just say it was in the southwest suburb of Chicago, where they would have regular poker games. And if you wanted to, purchase certain items, like a joint, you could do so. And it was so illegal. It was so freaking illegal. And that's what made it, when I was 19, kind of, cool and dangerous. You had to know people. You had to get vouched for. There were always a couple of people standing there that you felt like, we're going to make sure no trouble broke out. They'd search you. But, if you didn't tell people that's what you were doing, other than if somebody was like, hey, I'm going to go smoke and try and play some poker. And now they're encouraging you to do that. And you could do that. Like in Chicago where I'm at, you can, you can go to one of the, Sunnyside dispensary. You can go in there and, pre-order your gummies or your joints or whatever you want to do. And then walk like 2 blocks to Bally's Casino. Can't play poker there because they idiotically have never figured out how to legalize poker in Chicago. That's a whole other podcast for you. But I mean, so times change, and I get that, and I understand that the studios and the theater owners are looking to do different things, and to me, and I know once they announced that they were considering like having text-friendly screenings, people went nuts and said, and I personally would rather jump off the top of an AMC theater from the balcony, as they used to have, and splat like a cartoon character than be at a screening where there's texting going on. But what if they said, okay, AMC, the AMC that I go to, I think has 21 different screens. What if they said AMC 21, that last theater at the end of the hall? It's like when you're at the airport, you're always, got gate 52K. It's always the last one. If they said that's a text-friendly screening and you specifically bought particular tickets to see the movie and everybody was going to be texting. I mean, I think it's hell. It sounds like hell to me, but I don't know that people would go just so they would be able to text. You certainly can't mix the populations in this case. You can't combine people that are against texting and people that are with texting. You'll have wars breaking out. But if everyone wants to go in there and disrespect the movie and the filmmakers and everybody who went into it, and because they can't freaking stay off their phones for 2 hours, even though they can be on for the other 22 hours, including sleep. Because let's face it, you're all sleeping with your phones. Just admit it. Fine. But it has to be, a niche thing. If not, for me personally, like I've told you guys this, the last screening I went to, jam-packed, and you have 3 rows of critics, and then you have influencers, and you have other invited guests, and you have people that, went on Fandango, hey, see a free movie, big movie in advance. And a lot of times the actors and the director come on the screen, hey, you're one of the first to see this. And it's all very exciting. And there's security there to make sure that no one's shooting any video. And they say, they'll make an announcement. The security guard was great at the last one because she said, the movie's about to start. We encourage everybody to tweet or do your TikTok video or your Instagram after the movie and say how much you loved it. And here's all the hashtags you could use. But during the course of this movie, your phones must be off. If you need to make a phone call, if you need to make a text, if you need to check on a loved one, step outside, turn your phone on, come right back in. If we see a phone, if we see the glow of a device, you will be immediately ejected from the theater. And then she said, and I'm saying this specifically to you influencers out there. We love you, but you're the ones. Because that's the truth. I mean, I don't know of a single critic in the history of movie criticism, in the history of cell phones, who has shot any cell phone video. Not a legitimate, respected critic, because you would be fired, and you also just don't do it. But we have seen this with some, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, influencers or video vloggers. That was a term that was in vogue for about 2 seconds. And they'll shoot some of the screen or a still. And then I love this too. When people do this, they'll take a still shot from a movie and they say, oh, the lighting is terrible here. I'm like, well, first of all, it's through your camera, and also shut up. So again, if they can figure out a way to do it in specific theaters, go for it. The other debate is about the theatrical window, of course, right? Where it used to be at least 45 days. And now one of the lobbyists in this business, yes, what's this guy? Michael O'Leary has thrown down an unexpected gauntlet. This was a convention in Vegas, and he said, if you make viewers go back to 45 days before they can watch it on the couch, it might get them into theaters. Before COVID-19, and that's only 4 or 5 years ago, the wait was usually about 90 days. And then theaters after that, we were like, listen, we gotta shorten the distance because people got so used to watching feature films at home. Now it's 30 days. Sometimes it's a couple of weeks. I think the ship has probably sailed on that. I think a lot of people, listen, there's a big audience of moviegoers that don't need to, younger people love to see movies on opening days, especially if it's something like, the new Avengers or, a franchise when Harry Potter was, the big deal back in the day, and they dress up, they had to be there. And it was like that case for Wicked too. But a lot of casual moviegoers still like going to the movies. They don't want to go on opening weekend when it's going to be extra crowded. They like to, back in the day, you'd look in the newspaper. Now you go online and you say, hey, what's playing? Oh, okay. I've heard a lot of good things about The Amateur with Rami Malek. It came out 3 weeks ago. We could probably get tickets and, the theater will be half empty. I used to sometimes be that way before I got into the film criticism business. Just as a movie lover, I would either go to the very first one, like at Friday at 12 noon, or I'd wait. And I'd say, I'll wait a couple of weeks and then I'll check out this Fatal Attraction that everybody's talking about. It seems to be kind of lurid. And yes, I think some of those folks would then still go to the movies if they had to wait. But I know, because a lot of my friends are like that. And a lot of times when people are talking to me like, oh, what should I see that's in theaters now? And I start telling them about stuff that's not out yet because I've already seen it. And they go, yeah, but what came out 3 weeks ago? And I'm like, oh, 3 weeks ago? Well, let me check. Because once I've reviewed it, I'm already thinking about the next week of things. So I think people have gotten so used to, especially when you're to the age where you're, maybe you've got a family, you've got kids, going to the movies becomes a much bigger ordeal. Like the screening I was at that I mentioned the other day, there were definitely different ages and everything, but it skewed young. There's a lot of couples. Some of them surely are parents, but then there's a babysitter involved. But there's also lots of groups of 4 and 5 that can go to the movies because they're, in most cases, I think, probably single or at least not married with kids. So it's a lot easier to just say, hey, let's go to the screening on a Tuesday night. So when you get to the point where you've got all kinds of other responsibilities and you're both working full time and you have to have somebody watch the kids and you got to make sure the kids got fed and did their homework. Even on weekends, there's so much going on. It's only natural that those movie lovers are going to say, you know what, I'm going to wait 30 days to see this movie, or 45 days. And they'll willingly pay that $18.99 premium or whatever, because it's still way less expensive than all the things we talked about that involve going to the movies. But also they can just flop on the couch and you purchase it. Maybe you got a 72, I think sometimes you have like a 72-hour window, right? Or something like that. And you can watch it. And if you fall asleep on the couch, you can, resume. Or if you have to get up and do something. So I think the theater owners and the studios and the streaming, and they've tried to get all together on this. And listen, the theater owners are the ones who get hurt by this, because if they know that the movie's only going to play for 2 weeks or 3 weeks before it's going to be available on streaming. It's going to be tough for them to make because they make more money each week a movie is in theaters. A larger percentage goes usually to the theater owners. So it's to their great benefit for something to have a long run. But I all these things that people are talking about, the other idea, of course, is make better movies and find more. I still think if you find those medium level films that are really well done, that's what we're missing now. You get a lot of independent films and documentaries. A lot of those do go straight to video. But then you have these $200 million movies. If they're terrible, man, it takes the studio a long time. And I think there's still a spot for something like Anora that was made for, I don't know what, less than $10 million. They spent more on marketing and it still can make a lot of money. So I still think that's the way you got to go. It's changed and it's never going to go back to the way it used to be. Titanic, one of the biggest box office attractions of all time, multiple Oscar winner, was in U.S. theaters for 10 months back in the day, almost 10 months, from December 1997 to October 1998, and held the top spot at the box office for 15 straight weeks. And there's been some movies that have held the top spot, but once it gets to be about 4 or 5 weeks, because again, that movie that is often available on streaming, that I don't know that any movie's going to have top box office spot for 15 straight weeks ever again. Oh man, I got so much else to get to, but I got to tell you guys some stuff about some stuff that's coming out, that's out actually right now. So let's take a break. We'll talk about Portillo's and then some reviews for you. All right, it's time to tell you about Portillo's, the greatest single fast casual cuisine experience you're ever in your life. Let's talk about the hot dogs and all the famous Chicago ingredients. They'll do it for you, so you don't have to worry about getting it wrong. That includes the poppy seed bun. Then we can talk about the Italian beef, the sausage, and the fries, the salad, the chicken, you name it, all topped up, of course, with the legendary Portillo's chocolate cake. It's fast casual. That means it's better than fast food. You can sit down if you go to one of the restaurants, but it's still super casual. And you can order anywhere in the country via Portillos.com. That's Portillos.com. Once again, Portillos.com. Ask your friends from Chicago about it. Portillos.com.
There are legends of people with the gift of making music so true. It can conjure spirits from the past and the future. This gift can bring fame and fortune.
Will somebody take me in your eyes?
But it also can pierce the veil between life and death.
We gonna kill every last one of you.
Yo, it's my only thing. I think I shot myself.
Okay, that is a little audio from Sinners. This is the latest movie from the greatly talented filmmaker Ryan Coogler, who did Black Panther and Creed, and now has, I think, reached next level in original filmmaking with Sinners. This is I don't want to give too much away, but I know some of the ads and the trailers have, so we can get into it a little bit. Sinners is set in 1933, I believe it was, in the Mississippi Delta. And it's, the scene setting, the early scenes, it's very grounded in the reality of the time where, black sharecroppers were still, they weren't slaves, but they were working the fields and living in, terrible housing and horrible conditions. And there were lynchings and horrific bigotry and abuse. It was not the freedom that a lot of people envisioned that would happen after, again, 60 years after the end of slavery. So we're in this community. We're learning about the people in the community, in the town. And then we meet Smoke and Stack, who are both played by Michael B. Jordan. Okay. So Smoke and Stack, they're known collectively as Smokestack. They're these twin brothers who had a very tough upbringing, got into a lot of trouble. They're violent. They're dangerous. They're very smart and kind of fearless and also terrifying. So they had been up in Chicago in the 20s, as the story goes, for 7 years. And we come to believe they probably had worked with maybe some organized crime families and groups, and maybe not played by the rule book of the gangster code, and now had fled Chicago and were back home. So they're back home in their hometown, and they want to build a juke joint out, for their community, highlighting black singers and musicians and entertainers and giving the people a great place to go and dance and feel free for a few hours. Really, really feel free and feel one with each other and feel joy and exhilaration and love of music. So that's all of that is a setup that's very much like grounded in a reality, and it's beautifully filmed, and there are all kinds of great supporting performances. And then we meet all these great characters. The young cousin, Sammy, Miles Caton, a newcomer who's an incredible talent. And he's their cousin, and he's a great musician, and they're going to, have him be part of the entertainment at this new juke joint. But then this guy comes out of nowhere. Remick, his name is, played by Jack O'Connell, an incredible performance. A lot of the performances, I believe, in the film itself are Academy Award worthy or nomination worthy. And he's, how do I say this? He's not exactly human, shall we say. And then Sinners becomes, it's kind of reminded me of From Dusk Till Dawn. Remember with Clooney and Tarantino and Harvey Keitel, where at 1 minute, it's a movie about these serial killers taking this family hostage, and then it becomes this whole other thing. And that's kind of what happens in Sinners. All of a sudden, we're dealing in the worlds of the supernatural, and the otherworldly, and vampires, if you will. Maybe they're vampires, maybe they're not. Maybe it's the devil himself. And then it becomes this kind of gory, bloody epic, but there's this incredible music playing and all these different character arcs, and it's violent, and it's engrossing, and it's gross, and it's bloody, and it's sexual, and it's got incredible music, and it's got so much to say, because then when we learn more about this Remick, coming from a background of being Irish and being mistreated and abused and thought of less than, and is there freedom in a different kind of life, almost a vampire's life? These are these questions. And then we get an amazing ending. And I would tell you this, when you go to see this film, and you should see it in theaters, please see it in theaters, make sure you stay for the mid-credits sequence, because it's very key. It's I don't want to say anything about it, but it puts a different look on everything that's happened, a different view on everything you've seen in the 2 hours plus before that. And then there's an end credits sequence as well. That's kind of a standalone thing. So it's not like a Marvel movie where usually the mid-credits sequence is just really setting up a sequel that not always happens, or a new character, and it gets people excited. This mid-credits sequence is about the story we've just seen and tells us something new. I thought Sinners was one of the best films I've seen so far this year. So I hope you check it out. Can't wait to see what Ryan Coogler does again and again. He's a young filmmaker. I don't think he's even 40 yet. He's already has an amazing filmography. To the small screen and streaming, there's a series out on Netflix right now called Ransom Canyon.
In Ransom Canyon, everyone's running from something or running to something.
What is it with that guy anyway?
He lost everything.
Just trying to make sense of it.
You say you like the wind blowing through your hair.
So, you came home from New York.
My life here is starting to fall into place. Some things are just meant to be left in the past.
These ranches are our legacy. You can't force me out, Davis.
I will find a way.
Then it's war.
This is what they kind of call a neo-Western, like Landman and Tulsa King, and of course all the Yellowstone films. So, and of course there's flashbacks to prequels in that case. But in the case of like Landman and Yellowstone, set in modern day, so it's got all the technology and everything, but it's still about ranchers and farmers and cowboys, right? So I think this is based on a series of books. So Ransom Canyon stars Josh Duhamel and Minka Kelly, two veterans of television and movies they play two of the main characters. She's got her own music joint. She's got a place where everybody gathers in town to play country music and sing and dance. And he's a generational rancher. And this is mainly about three different ranching families. And they have the classic feuds. And then you always have the power company, the water company, or somebody wants to do some frickin' and fracking, who wants to buy the rights to the land. And some people want to sell, and others are like, you won't get this land over my dead body. And there's romances. And then there's always the side stories about the youngsters, the high school age kids of these people. The romance between Josh Duhamel and Minka Kelly is probably the best thing about this, because they're two people who, for various reasons I don't want to give away, have probably been in love since high school. And now it's 35 years later. And they've never gotten together and they may never, even though it's so obvious they should be together. In fact, this is not a huge spoiler, but there's one of the best scenes in this. And I'm not recommending this, by the way. It's close. I'm 2.5 stars on Ransom Canyon, but there are some really good set pieces. And at one point, there's a tornado might be coming, and they're fiddling around the portable radio. And the song that comes on the radio is Tonight, Tonight by the Smashing Pumpkins. Great song. And they both look at each other and they're like, oh, prom. And I'm like, oh, God, we've reached the point now where the Smashing Pumpkins, and I know the song came out, 35 years ago, but to me, it seems like more new music. And that was their prom scene. So in other words, that's their oldie. Their old, the old dusty song is Smashing Pumpkins. The reason I'm not recommending Ransom Canyon is they overdo it with the melodrama. And listen, all of these shows are soap operas, and there was a big dust up because somebody called Yellowstone. I think Tarantino, you guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's the one that said it was a soap opera. And it is. They have all the elements of the soap opera, the generational families, the romances, the misunderstandings, the tragedies, and all of that. In Ransom Canyon, they pile it on. In the pilot episode, we already have a tragedy, and then we have another tragedy. And then later we have another, and it's too much. I think it lessens the impact if you have too much of that. And, a lot of shows, listen, there's a lot of death, and especially more violent shows. But in this case, because it's more of a family, not a family drama, but a drama about families, it seems forced. Like they didn't trust sometimes with the end, sometimes people talk about, the slow pacing of White Lotus or something like that. But I think that's a good thing sometimes. Let's get to know these characters, and let's not have these, these kind of old school cliffhangers every episode. So it's well done. The dialogue's a little more on the level of a soap opera than when you get with something like Landman, where it's so fast and quick and funny and entertaining. It's definitely watchable. I think a lot of folks were just looking for something easy. I think it was about 8 episodes, and it's ending on a cliffhanger for sure. So I'm sure they're planning on a second season. But I don't know, a little bit underwhelming. If you're looking for something to binge, go with your friends and neighbors, John Hamm on Apple TV Plus, or The Studio on Apple TV Plus. Some of the shows that have been out for a while, like Long Bright River on Peacock. If you're looking for streaming stuff, all of those are superior to this particular release. Okay, that's going to do it. We will talk. The next time we talk to you, it's going to be May, believe it or not. But we will talk. Thanks for listening.